Hey everybody, here we are, our first episode of Beers with Chad. So this is just going to be kind of a weekly, every other week. We'll see, how many beers I want to drink that week. Bonus to the JuggLife. Today's beers. There's already one in the cup, but backup is Stone Scorpion Bowl IPA. It is 7.5% alcohol by volume, rated 3.98 out of 5 on Beer Advocate. So it's kind of my typical beer taste. Definitely more to the IPAs, and maybe the weather's always so nice here in California. I'm sorry to be flaunting this to the Midwesterners watching, but I'm here sitting in my backyard with my cool haircut here in Orange County, California, in Costa Mesa. It's about 70 degrees out, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a beautiful day. So sorry, I'm not sorry, but yeah. So pretty typical beer tastes. IPA, more citrus kind of IPAs, blondes. It doesn't really get cold enough kind of weather here for me to really warrant like winter stouts and that kind of thing. But we'll just kind of keep some different beers every week. Maybe some Moscow Mules in the mix. We'll see what kind of mood we're in. So it's Wednesday night. Tomorrow morning we depart for the Arnold. The Arnold Sports Festival, always a fun, hectic, ridiculous weekend. Have a lot of competitors going on. For the Team Juggernaut, Janice Akamoto kicks things off tomorrow. Is 53 kilo weightlifter and a CrossFitter, super shredded. And then Friday we really start to get into the big action right off the bat with the weightlifters. In the morning we have Justin Meyer in the Pan Am session. Later that day, or just 2 hours after that, Alyssa, Richie, Kiana Welch, and Alexandra LaChance, all three ladies in the Pan Am trials session there for weightlifting. Simultaneous to that, Mrs. Joanne Ada will be competing in the Raw Challenge. That's Max's wife, but I coach her for powerlifting. And then that evening we have Walker Bradshaw lifting, and then Saturday Kristen Dunsmore at the Pro American, and simultaneous to that Marissa will be lifting on the Rogue stage of strength inside the expo hall at the Grand Prix. So it's going to be a good time, as long as kind of crossing our fingers to make sure a couple of people come out of a little bit of illness this week. But assuming that everyone stays healthy, or is healthy rather, come competition time, we should see some really big numbers. I'm excited about that. And so kind of as we get ready to head to the Arnold, the USAPL maybe provided us with a bit of interesting discussion points leading into the Arnold, and that was with a post that they made last night about Dana Linn Bailey. They posted up her bio as she gets ready to compete at the USAPL Pro American. I think it's the USAPL, might be the NAPF. I don't know. That's probably maybe a topic for next week of how the USAPL and IPF could better organize and showcase things. But we'll talk about her. So everything I've heard about Dana Linn Bailey is that she's a very, very nice person. There'll probably be a lot of times in this instance, and depending on how many of these I have drank, when I'm going to talk about people, and you're going to hear some very real, some very candid opinions. So, with that said, everything I've never met Dana Linn Bailey. Marissa met her at Nationals, said that she's very nice, very sweet, and it's not about. This isn't about DLB really at all. It's about the USAPL and the tough spot, the tough position they put themselves in by making this post. All right, and I'm sure that the USAPL is making this post. They want to leech off of Dana Linn Bailey's popularity and however many million followers that she has. But in doing so, I think they create a tough position for themselves. They also create a tough position for their elite competitors in, for their elite competitors in doing so. So it's pretty clear, I think, that Dana Linn Bailey, at some point in her athletic career, more likely than not, took performance-enhancing drugs. I think it would be very unlikely that someone wins an Olympia physique competition drug-free. So let's just get that out up front. Now, is that a violation of USAPL rules and USADA WADA rules that they're governed by? No. The rule is not that you have to be lifetime drug-free. The rule is that you need to have been clean for 3 years. And, who am I to say that she has not been clean for 3 years? Is it the most, I'm not familiar enough with her bodybuilding career and the exact timeline of things there to really comment on, the time frame there. But let's say that she has been clean for 3 years. That's within the USAPL stated rules. So she is following the rules now, but you have really one of two options from that. Let's say, I think that she is currently following the USAPL rules, and let's say that she's been clean for 3 years. I can't comment on that again, not familiar enough with her competition history and kind of when she stepped aside from bodybuilding. But if she's following the rules now, there's either one, that nobody thinks that she is, nobody believes her, or two, she doesn't follow their own standard of drug-free competition, and that she's a natural lifetime drug-free athlete. So that kind of gets into two muddy areas, I think, for the USAPL. To the people who don't think she's following the rules now, Max and I addressed this some in our JuggLife episode, and probably many JuggLife episodes we've talked about steroid use and positive tests and all that, but I think particularly in our Icarus episode, I know that she's been tested out of competition. That's on the drug testing database. She posted pictures and stories and stuff during out of competition testing. I believe it's very unlikely that her or anyone else who is getting out of competition tested for the USAPL is beating those tests. And that first goes to that there's no incentive to do so. Competing in the USAPL is a pain in the ass, especially competing at the highest level, as Marissa does, as Kristen does, and having to file whereabouts all the time and always be ready to get tested and then get to pay a ton of money to go lift, for the honor of representing your country at IPF Worlds. It's a pain in the ass. It would be much easier for someone to go and lift in untested competition, especially someone who, in the case of Dana Linn Bailey, who everyone already thinks that she's on drugs. She takes extra shit, gets extra shit from the fans for competing in drug-tested competition, even though, again, I think she is currently following the rules. That I think, 3 years clean, that's fine. She's passing the drug test. That has to be an assumption of innocence, in my opinion, because if we can't assume that someone who is passing the drug tests is innocent in the sport of powerlifting and in the sport of weightlifting in the United States, what then can we assume makes someone innocent? So that's a tough area for her right off the bat, is that no one thinks she's following the rules. But yes, I do think that she's passing the drug test because she's not using performance-enhancing drugs. The second half of this problem that it presents for the USAPL is kind of what I'm more interested in, and it's that if nobody thinks that she's clean, and they think the drug tests are so easy to beat or whatever, they're not. There's no incentive and there's no resource for American powerlifters who, maybe this weekend can win like $2,000, to be beating out of competition year-round drug testing. So I just don't see it happening. As we saw in Icarus, it was taking an entire government, up to possibly Vladimir Putin, to beat drug testing at the WADA standard out of competition testing stuff. A question I see coming through is spending a decade of training getting stronger by using performance enhancing drugs, which again, she never failed the test, so what it is. But I think it's probably unlikely that she is never used. Well, that's not the rule. The rule is not lifetime drug free. The rule is you've been clean for 3 years, which is really just your word, and then that you can pass the tests. Is there some residual effect for that? Yeah, probably. But there's a lot of things that almost probably everyone has done who competes in drug tested competition that would violate the WADA panel because it is so extensive, down to cough medicines and that type of thing, where they would have had some violation. So if we have to say that you've never had a violation, that would be unrealistic. So the rule is what it is there. So the second part of things is if everyone assumes that she's still breaking the rules, which again, I think she's passing the drug test, so she's clean. That's the rules. But then becomes a very murky area when you consider, well, she's getting, for lack of a better term, smashed by better lifters. And that is where I take issue with people's opinion of drug testing, with the USAPL, promoting her, though I understand why they're doing it, is that there are other female lifters out there crushing her totals. So 2 athletes that I coach, Kristen Dunsmore, Marissa Inda. The number 3 and number 6 lifters in the USAPL in 2017 by Wilks formula. Kristen is a 63 kilo lifter, same weight class as Dana Linn Bailey. At Nationals, Kristen out-totaled her by 80 kilos, 80, all right, 80 kilos. Marissa out-totaled her by 45 kilos at 10 kilos less body weight. So then you run down this road of everyone thinks that Dana Linn Bailey's dirty because, whether she used in the past or whatever it is, or they think that, she's Grigory Rodchenkov and she's beating these drug tests. But then what are people going to think? That if these people are beating her by so much, they must all be dirty too. And then it gets into this idea, the Blaha-isms of well, everyone who's good is on drugs, and the tests are so easy to pass, which is just false. It is a very false narrative being portrayed by people, that out of competition drug testing, with good drug tests being done, a mix of USADA or WADA panel, is some easy thing to beat. Again, watch Icarus. It takes an entire government for Russia, an entire government's efforts to beat the drug test there, and they didn't even beat the drug test. They circumvented the process, and I think that's a lot of what happens in the IWF, in international track and field. It's circumventing the process through bribes, through other levels of corruption, to avoid taking the test or to avoid the test being released. Why on earth would an American powerlifter in something with no money, be able to do that? Why would they have an incentive to do that? They wouldn't have the ability to do that. Well, first they wouldn't have the ability nor the incentive to do that. So to me, it's a preposterous idea. Now, when everyone says, "Well, it's just it's just a IQ test. It's not it's not a drug test. It's an IQ test because you just know when to come off." Well, when you have to tell USADA every day, you can find me here for this 1 hour, and then they show up whenever they want. How the fuck do you know when to come off for that? That's what really muddies the issue. Are there things that clear fast? Of course. All right. Are there things that people could be doing that clear in 23 hours, let's say? So if their window is up at 8 a.m. and they know that they're not potentially drug tested again the next day until 7 a.m., and they take something at 8:01 that's going to clear before the test the next day, is that happening? Almost definitely. I'm sure that is happening. I think it's much more likely that it's happening in weightlifting in America than it is happening in the USAPL, because there's no other outlets for American weightlifters, and there's greater incentive to beat the tests because of stipends, because of just a more prestigious sport. Where American powerlifter, maybe you make the argument that there's value in, that the IPF World Championships is such a prestigious thing that taking drugs and all this stressful stuff to do that would be worth it. I would argue against that. It's interesting listening to like the Jeff Nowitzki podcast with Joe Rogan. He's been on there a couple times, and as Jeff Nowitzki talks about, having conversations with these athletes who he caught using drugs, and them talking about the incredibly high stress levels that they were experiencing, just knowing that they could be caught at any moment. Or listen to the Lance Armstrong podcast with Joe Rogan, and he echoes a similar sentiment. For an American powerlifter to do that just seems far-fetched to me, when they could so easily go compete untested. They could win way more money. They could do so in an easier, kind of less difficult environment, whether it's in terms of time of weigh-in, the standard of judging, different bars, all those kind of things. So it's frustrating to me as a coach, as someone who gets to coach incredibly talented, hard-working athletes like Marissa, like Kristen, who are putting up these huge numbers, and then the USAPL, I think, draws attention to it in the sense that they post about Dana Linn Bailey, and it can lead people down this road of thinking that thinking that she's cheating, so everyone who's better than her must be cheating too, when it's just not the case. So, if I was running the USAPL social media, I get what their strategy is there of putting someone up who's got all these followers and bringing popularity to the sport. And even me talking about these things, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I want Dana Linn Bailey to be successful in the USAPL. I think that she's following the rules. I have as a coach of people who she is competing against, I have no problem with her competing in the USAPL, because there's no chance of her beating the girls that I coach. Why would I? She's not taking a world team spot. Why would I give a shit about that? Kristen's beating her by 80 kilos. So, but what I do have a problem with is her being allowed to compete, and it leading to a perception of, oh, the drug tests are just a joke. The drug tests are so easy to beat, and then it lead people to think that, oh, everyone who's stronger than her must be on drugs too. When in reality, genetics plays the greatest role in lifting. So the talent that these people come in with, and then, I can't speak to her training one way or the other, but there's just people who train a lot better, a lot smarter, a lot harder than others. I'm very fortunate to coach, I think, two of the best female powerlifters in the world, in Marissa and Kristen Dunsmore. So for me, it is a frustrating thing. It's a frustrating thing to see how so many people on the internet, and I don't know why I still get frustrated by the Instagram commenters and YouTube commenters of the world, but it's very frustrating for me to see comments about people like this, and it to sort of in some roundabout way diminish the accomplishments of athletes who I know are clean and who I know work so hard. So again, to kind of sum that up, if you're in out-of-meet testing and you're passing in the USAPL, in the CPU, the Canadian Federation, in England, in Australia, in a lot of these countries that take anti-doping seriously, and believe you me, USADA takes anti-doping very seriously. They love catching people. All right, RUSADA, Russian Anti-Doping Association, they love stopping people from getting caught. They're making an active effort to protect their athletes. USADA and American NGBs like USAW are not making an active effort, to my knowledge, to protect athletes from being caught. So if you're in out of competition testing and you're passing, I say that you're clean. I have no other standard to go on than that. Maybe someone had used in the past, but like I said, I have no problem with her lifting in the USAPL. I've heard that she's a very, very nice person. It is frustrating to me to see the USAPL prop her up so much when I think there are athletes, certainly who are just more deserving of it based on their own accomplishments, as well as all these other factors that we talked about. So I got a lot of questions on Instagram and topics that people wanted to hear about. Some of them I'm going to save for future episodes. I know that you guys can't see what it looks like in here. Nice golden kind of look to it. This is the beer, Stone Scorpion Bowl IPA, 7.5%. So some of them I'll save for future episodes, for future rants or whatever. But the one that I saw come up a couple other times, so I'll kind of let you, some of the stuff I want to talk about, this is a bit more personal or whatever, and let you just get to know me outside of the JuggLife podcast and our informational videos and books and all of that. So a couple of people asked something to the effect of, what would I be doing if it wasn't Juggernaut? And the question of why do I pour the beer into a cup and not drink it straight out of the bottle? Because this cup is one of those special, like, keep it colder longer kind of cups, so it's colder longer for me. But so the question was, what would I be doing if it wasn't if I wasn't doing Juggernaut? So I've had 4 jobs in my life, and I plan on probably only having 4 jobs for all of my life. When I was 12 years old, I was a newspaper delivery boy for the Irvine World News in my hometown. Drove around in the back of my mom's Dodge Caravan, chucking newspapers out the side door. I worked at a restaurant for maybe 9 months in high school, Champs Sports Bar in the Irvine Spectrum, if any of you are local and remember that. I was a host there, and then also during like playoff games, like Lakers were in the NBA championship then, I would do a bit of security type of work when it would get really crowded for games like that. I only got to bounce someone once ever. I was 17 years old. I think it was very illegal for me to be checking IDs and whatnot, but we did it anyways. And then from about 19 until 22, so while I was in college, I guess quick college story, I originally went to the University of California, Berkeley, the Cal Golden Bears, home of Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Money Lynch. Went there on a track scholarship for 2 years, transferred back here to Orange County for 1 year of junior college, and then finished with 2 years at Concordia University in Irvine. And during that year in junior college and the 2 years at Concordia, I coached high school football and high school track, and ran the off-season program for football, while also competing in track myself. So, and then finally my fourth job, and hopefully last job of my life, however much longer that lasts, will be juggernauting all things that entails. So growing up, I always wanted to be there were 2 jobs that really stand out in my mind that I was interested in having. Besides being like a little kid and wanting to be a professional football player, a professional basketball player. Funny aside about wanting to be a professional basketball player, growing up I mostly did soccer, track, and basketball from about 5, soccer from 5 to 13, basketball from 7 or 8 until 13 or 14, and track from 8 until like 23. And when I started out in track, I was a sprinter and a shot putter. Southern California 4x100 meter champions, in fact, for little white boys from Irvine. But so growing up, besides those, as far as wanting to be a professional basketball player, hopefully this video never surfaces, but there is a videotape that I made at about 8 years old playing basketball in my driveway, which I then mailed to the Charlotte Hornets as a bit of a tryout type of video, because I saw Muggsy Bogues. If you're a 90s basketball fan, you definitely remember Muggsy Bogues. And I was like, well, this guy's short as shit. Like I said, if he can play in the NBA, so can I. So let me make this video showing off my sweetest moves and send that off to the Hornets. Never heard back from them. So now we're here. Now we're doing Juggernaut stuff. Other jobs I remember wanting to have growing up is being a sportscaster. Even now I listen to like a ton of sports talk stuff. Colin Cowherd, Bill Simmons, Mike and Mike, or Golick and Wingo now. Barstool Sports stuff. Listen to a ton of that. Have a lot of other sports interests besides powerlifting and weightlifting, but I always wanted to be a sportscaster. I think I've got the voice for it. Anyone who's been to one of our powerlifting or weightlifting meets that we hosted, that I announced for, I think I've got a pretty good announcer's voice. So maybe someone will hear this and think, hey, that guy could be an announcer, and then I'll pick up like a little side gig, PA announcing for the Rams or something. And so I remember wanting to do that, and I also remember wanting to be a sports agent. But I was definitely always very interested in sports, kind of obsessed with sports my whole life, and always wanted to be involved in that industry. But the inclination to be a trainer, a coach, strength and conditioning, that field really came about early in high school. I've been writing my own training for the better part of my entire training career, from about 14 years old on, with the exception of a little bit of coaching in college, and then some time with Josh Bryant as my coach. I've pretty much written my own training from 14 now to 31, with maybe 2 years exception in there. And in high school, we didn't have a strength coach. We didn't have any kind of formalized off-season program for football. So in 2000, 2001, 2002, I just sort of, looked around the internet, which was much more sparse in terms of information. Certainly if I knew then what I knew now, type of thing. But was pretty sparse with information, but found as much stuff as I could, and really enjoyed that, and created my own program with some good things, some terrible things, and trained very, very hard at that. When I started high school, I was about 5'8", 175 pounds. When I graduated high school, I was about 6 foot, 275 pounds. And, I dunked a basketball when I weighed 275. I dunked when I weighed about 295 my senior year of college. And it was, for the most part, good training. That was sprints and jumps, squats, power cleans, hard bench press training. I was never really into bodybuilding. I almost wish that I would have had that phase a little bit more. But in writing my own programs, and us not having any kind of formalized off-season program, I sort of had teammates who came alongside me, usually not lasting for more than 2 or 3 months at a time on this program, which I would often train like 3 to 4 hours, 5 or 6 days a week. But, kind of get them going on the program, and they do that. Or when I was a senior, or going to be a senior, our coach kind of tasking me with taking a couple of the younger offensive linemen on our team under my wing and taking them through the same type of training that I was doing. So even in high school at 16, 17 years old, I began coaching, and then the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of high school was the first time that I was an official coach and ran the summer program for our football team, and then at 19 became a defensive line coach, assistant offensive line coach, and ran the off season. Did that for 3 years, and then went into Juggernaut. And as far as what I would be doing if it wasn't Juggernaut, I really have no idea. I'm sure I would be coaching. I would be coaching in some capacity. Before I opened Juggernaut, I was working on my teaching credential and had an interest in, not so much becoming a high school teacher, but rather becoming like a head high school football coach, and sort of trying to move up the ranks there, more so as a football coach than as a strength coach, but both sides definitely interested me. As in regards to coaching high school football, I definitely enjoyed the science, I guess, side of it, and running the off season and the schemes and techniques, but also definitely enjoyed the ability to impact young people's lives. I was obsessed is almost the right word with like De La Salle football, if you're familiar with them. 12-year winning streak, 151 games in a row. Every book, every documentary, everything that about De La Salle that Bob Ladouceur has ever written, anything like that, I read it all, watched it all multiple times. Got to spend a couple weeks with them when I was 19, before I moved down here to coach football, because I was at Berkeley, maybe 30, 40 minutes away from Concord, where De La Salle is. Got to spend some time watching their practices, and their system really impacted me, and was something that I tried to carry on as I was coaching high school football. So if it wasn't doing Juggernaut stuff, I'm sure I would be coaching. I'm sure at this point, being a head high school football coach or moving on to being a college coach would have definitely been my aspirations. But like I said, only 4 jobs so far. Hopefully only 4. Unless ESPN hears my desire to be a sportscaster and wants to give me a little gig there. Even though I'm a bit more of a Fox Sports guy these days than an ESPN guy. So this was the first episode of Beers with Chad. So cheers. Kind of what I'm thinking that this podcast is going to be. It's going to be some about current events going on within the strength world, powerlifting, weightlifting, CrossFit, the stuff that we talk about. Maybe current events outside the strength world, I don't know. I can almost for sure promise you there will not be any political discussion, just because I don't really know enough about that to talk about it, and I'd sound like an ass. I'll definitely be talking about other sports as well. Big football fan. Olympics, Winter Olympics, not as big on the Winter Olympics, though I would look for Carlo Valdez, who is one of the pushers on the U.S. bobsled team, to be a future JuggLife guest. I've known Carlo probably since I was maybe 8 years old, and he was 5, something like that. We went to the same school. We were on the same club track team. Great guy. So we'll have him on. I watched a decent bit of the Winter Olympics, though. I can't say I'm really into the Winter Olympics like I am the summer. UFC, I'll be talking about my experience with jiu-jitsu, some of my training and how that looks like now, and as well as entertainment, TV, podcasts, movies, all that kind of stuff. So probably keep the shows about this length, which I think was like 20 or 30 minutes. And hopefully you tune in, you enjoy. It should be a good mix of some strength talk, some non-strength talk, and all of that. Coming up this weekend, tomorrow morning, I will leave beautiful sunny Southern California for less beautiful, less sunny Columbus, Ohio, for the Arnold Sports Festival. Catch me around there coaching on Friday or Saturday. We'll also be running a sale on store.jtsstrength.com for all Arnold weekend from Friday through Sunday. That will be 20% off store-wide, except online coaching, so be on the lookout for that. Shortly after returning from the Arnold, I will depart, Marissa and I will depart for Australia, We have events in Brisbane, Canberra, and Melbourne. Then we'll be at the Arnold, Australia. There's still space remaining for my powerlifting programming workshop at PTC South Melbourne on Friday, March 16th. So make sure to check that out. And then beyond that, as soon as we get back from Australia, we're going to turn right around again and head to New York for 2 JuggLife Live episodes. One that is already sold out on Friday night at JDI Barbell, which will be a free snatch workshop with Max Ada, and then a JuggLife Live. And then some space still remains for our Saturday, I think Saturday, March 24th event, in which we will do a free squat workshop and then a JuggLife Live at Outlift Athletics out there on Long Island. So make sure to sign up and check those out. We also have a JuggLife Live coming up in Oakland. Later in the year, we'll be in Texas, probably Florida at some point for a couple of those. So be on the lookout for more JuggLife Lives. And this was the first episode of Beers with Chad. That's me. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you maybe next week, maybe this weekend at the Arnold. The beers could be flowing. Who knows? All right, thank you.